Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshop, where we get together in the middle of the week, at the beginning of the month, and learn more about technology. We've got a terrific set of presentations today, and we're going to get started right away. We're going to start out with music, as you can see from the background. Today, we're going to find out all that's new and what's going to be new of music in our homes, music in our car, and we are fortunate to have an expert in music. He has a collection of music that just baffles me whenever I see all that he has and the knowledge that he has. And Ray Baxter is going to be sharing all this new up-to-date information about how we listen to music in the new technology day. So Ray, I'm going to start it right off to you.
All right, let me share my screen here. I had this over here before, but let's do it this way. And we're gonna. All right, can everybody see that?
Looks good.
Good, okay. So I've done this presentation several times before. I used to have a separate one for music listening at home as an example. Then it certainly a change, and I added one for the car. But more recently, I've combined these two into one. That makes sense. The way our listening to music habits have changed. And I'm so pleased to be able to do this today here with the APCUG folks that I work with all the time. So just a quick background information on me from a music point of view. My accent hasn't given me away yet. I was born and raised in New York City. I love to tell people where I live now in Arizona that I never had an accent until the day I arrived in Arizona. But anyway, I was around as a youngster at the birth of rock and roll, and I actually started buying records at the age of 11. I helped start an organization in Southern California called the Doo-Wop Society. We actually put on live stage shows every quarter, mostly focusing on vocal groups of the 1950s and early 1960s, which is the genre I personally focus on most of the time. There's an organization called RCA, nothing to do with the record label. It's the Record Collectors of Arizona. And I host a Zoom meeting once a week where we get together and we watch YouTube videos and discuss the early days of rock and roll. And then I have a similar type of club locally where I live, but we meet at people's homes and watch a lot of YouTube videos and talk about all kinds of popular music from the last 70 years. And then from the technology side of it, I'm associated with APCUG as president and treasurer. I coordinate a small computer club here in Payson, Arizona. And I used to teach some computer-related courses at Eastern Arizona College. All right, so the first part really is how technology has changed the way we listen to music at home. And I'm going to go through fairly quickly all the different devices we've used over the years. So first of all, I want to give you a brief introduction to my man cave where I spend, you can guess, a fair amount of my time. Well, hello there, folks. Since this presentation is titled How Technology Has Changed the Way We Listen to Music over the years, over about the last 70 years, I thought I'd show you that I actually have some of the different devices we used in that time frame. So we can start with the 78 RPM record. And here's my collection that I probably started collecting in 1956 and 57. Because I made a spreadsheet so I can know where the different records are. We then moved on to 45 RPM records, and I keep them there. And then, of course, the long play album over here is what most of us, probably many of you may still have. And then we moved into CDs. And the amount of CDs that we have here, this is my collection, and then my wife has her own collection over here. And then now we're into MP3s. I have many of them on my computer, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then some of the equipment we used over the years would include, of course, the turntable. This is a unique turntable, in fact, that I can put a disc on here, and I may demonstrate that. Press a number and then it'll automatically go and count the number of spaces between the tracks, and then if I
press number 4, it would drop down automatically on the 4th track without me having to search for it. Before we started making copies of CDs on the computer, we actually had devices like this where you could put the original in here and a blank over here, close them up, and then this would automatically make, let's give that a little help, would automatically make a copy of the disc. The old VHS player, this is one that'll actually convert it to a DVD. And then I talked a little bit about the computer.
All right, so before 1948, and I'll explain in a minute why 1948 was a pivotal year. The phonograph, invented by Thomas Edison in 1877, that really led to the development of the 78 RPM record. And during the first half of the 20th century, this allowed consumers really for the first time to choose what music they wanted to listen to at home. But right from the start, the 78 RPM was a format with a need for improvement. So the records were made out of shellac. We're used to 45s and LPs made out of vinyl, but these records and 78s were made out of shellac. Therefore, they could easily chip or shatter. And due to the weight of the tone arms on those early players, the recording grooves and thus the sound quality would deteriorate after many plays. Some consumers, believe it or not, some consumers would add to this problem by taping a coin to the tone arm to help reduce skipping. That sound familiar to anyone? I don't want to forget about the radio. Record players were expensive and there were many people who just could not afford them. But before 1948, most households had a radio, and after the initial cost, the music was free. Radio made available all types of music for all kinds of listeners. Let's face it, before the 1960s in a segregated America, phonograph records broadcast over the radio were available for all to hear. It only depended where on the tuning dial the listener chose to stop. So in a small way, radio helped equalize the social classes. Both the poor and the rich could hear the great vocalists. White listeners could hear black music without fear of violating any of the current day social norms. And in the mid-1950s, particularly in large urban cities, there were many a young white teenager with a transistor radio tucked under the pillow in the wee hours, listening to the transition of black R&B into early rock and roll. Yeah, just ask me. Okay, records become vinyl, and this is when the format war began. So, developed and introduced by the Columbia Broadcasting System in 1948, that's the pivotal year, they created the LP to improve upon the decades-old 78 RPM. At the time, Columbia's arch rival was RCA Victor, and they were the largest record label for distributing 78 RPM records. So I think we all can see that the benefits of the LP over the 78 RPM were pretty obvious. Greater sound fidelity, weighed less, far less breakable, and by playing it at that slower speed, a 12-inch disc could have as much as 22 minutes of music per side. Now here's something most people don't realize, that the first LP records were 10 inches in diameter, the same as the 78 RPM record. My guess is Columbia thought it best to keep the same size disc that the general public was already used to. So there's an example of a 10-inch disc and then the 12-inch disc that we're used to. But within a few years, the LP size was increased to 12 inches. They wanted to accommodate more tracks on each side, and it's remained to this day. Although over the years, other sizes were tried, never did any of them, though, catch on. The little disc with the big hole in the middle, the 45 RPM record. RCA Victor needed to compete from a sound quality perspective with the LP, and they introduced the following year, in 1949, its new format. Now, RCA Victor had an advantage in that they also made the record players, and they sold those record players at cost to entice new buyers. And the benefits of a 45, well, they 3 minutes of playing time on each side, approximately, perfect length for the pop and what we used to call hillbilly songs of the day. And this size was ideal to replace 78s in the nation's jukeboxes, which at the time were extremely popular. That, to me, is one of the main reasons the 45 RPM took off. How many of you still have your 45s? I'm always surprised that as we've gotten older and made moves, etc., the 45s were one of the first things to go when new music formats came up. But no, I've continued to keep all of mine, and that certainly have increased the amount that I own today. Hey, how many can relate to this? When I was a kid, this is how we made a playlist. Stack the records on the spindle and let them drop down and play each one after the other. Well, then we had the 8-track tape. For the first time, Have Music Will Travel, musical you could choose. But this was unintended results because the 8-track was actually invented by Bill Lear in 1965 for his line of private Learjets. But the units were ideal for consumers to play music in the cars as well. And the players were initially manufactured by a Ford Motor Company affiliate, thus making the name Motor Victrola into Motorola Corporation. Then the compact cassette. Now, actually, the cassette has been around from going way back to 1963. But in those days, it was really only used for dictation because it had poor sound quality and a lot of hissing noise in the background. But by the early 70s, with the introduction of the Dolby tape noise reduction systems, the ability to record hi-fi made the cassette a serious format for recording music. And this cassette really stayed around for decades. Home recording decks allowed consumers the ability to create their own mixtapes. How many of you may even still have some tapes hiding somewhere in the house? And continuing improvements in the tape quality and the noise reduction systems kept the compact cassette a popular format into the 21st century. Then we had the Sony Walkman. 1979 ushered in a new era of portability, selling over 200 million units. And in those days, this was considered a compact size, certainly not by today's standards, but in those days, that made them conducive for music to jog by and other outdoor activities. Sony's lead helped the cassette tape outsell vinyl records for the first time in 1983. I'm sure everybody said, well, that's it for the vinyl record. Not going to see them anymore. The popularity of the Walkman was at its highest during the period 1987 to 1997, but then the introduction of the compact disc, the cassette format began to fade. Now, the Walkman name stayed relevant for many years. It was an MP3 player, it was a phone, and even a portable DVD player. Music portability before the iPod was the Sony Walkman. I just want to mention what to do if you have old mixtape cassettes you made of music back in the day. Unless you really want to play cassettes, I would toss them and replace that music with something more modern. But let's say you have one-of-a-kind cassette tapes that you want to digitize. Let's say they're the voice recording of a loved one who's passed on. Well, here's a solution. So in this upper photo here, this is what appears to be a standard cassette player, typical controls over here of play, fast forward, stop, etc. But I've turned now this cassette deck over, and then the bottom left photo shows this player has a connection for a USB flash drive that will record as an MP3 file when the cassette is being played in real time. And then this bottom right photo shows a similar but larger boombox style device that does the same thing and can also accommodate and do the recording on an SD card. So these are available on Amazon, and this is how you can preserve those priceless cassette tapes. Then we have the compact disc. So back in the 1970s, Sony and Philips working together, they were involved in the research and development of what is called optical disc technology. As I recall, the first commercial CDs were pretty expensive and consisted mostly of classical music, but didn't take long for the pop music to come on board. In 1982, the first album on CD was Billy Joel's 52nd Street. Then by 1985, Dire Straits became the first artist to sell 1 million CDs. Philips and Sony created the CDR, which I'm sure we've all used, the recordable CD, in 1990. 2008, sales for large label CDs dropped by 20% due to the rising popularity at that time of music downloads. And even though the CD is still a popular format, the sales continue to decline year after year There is a slight exception in 2021, which I'll mention in a minute. Now, copying CDs to your computer. This, to me, the main reason for ripping a CD is to back it up. You want to have it and organize your collection so it can be found quickly. You can download that music once it's on your computer to a smartphone. The newer autos allow you to play that music through your car system from your smartphone, or you can copy the songs to a flash drive that you can play in your car. I'm always amazed at how many people have not ripped their CDs. Now, here's something interesting. Most people don't think about this, but how many of you have CDs that you put in the car and sometimes it gives you the name of the artist and sometimes it just says track 1 and track 2? So think about this. Music CDs were first introduced to the public long before the personal computer became standard in the home. So for all these older CDs in circulation, the data for the song title and the artist, they are not stored on that actual disc. So here's what happens when you insert a CD in a computer. The metadata is automatically retrieved within seconds from an online database by comparing the number of tracks and their individual times. So the chances of two different CDs having the same number of tracks and each track being exactly the same length of time, they're remote. I guess it can happen, but it's obviously, I think we can all understand that's pretty remote. So there's several music online databases that have this information, Gracenode being the most popular. Now, more recent music CDs do have the artist and track information encoded in the CD. So this data can be read by CD players used in cars and the home, but computers cannot read this text. Guess how long it took to rip these? Yes, it's a big job, but once you're done with it, it's very satisfying to know you have all your music backed up. Then the MP3 audio came around, and that makes your entire music collection portable. So what is an MP3? Well, it's an audio compression subset of the moving pictures expert group family of standards. In other words, the movie industry came up with this. And it's a process to compress the music. So it basically takes the song and it makes it 10% of the size of the original recording. So if you had a 50 megabyte clip of a song, it would make it about 5 megabytes. Many audiophiles disregard MP3. They instead opt for what's called lossless recordings with full fidelity, such as what you might find on a commercial CD. But the impact of the MP3 was enormous. Portable MP3 players, which can hold thousands of songs, were very popular, and then that became a feature in smartphones. Many modern car stereos have that USB connector, allowing you to plug your flash drive in, again, thousands of songs to be played while you're on the road. Now, digital downloads. These became very popular in replacing CDs back about 2011. That's when Nielsen and Billboard said digital music purchases now accounted for more than 50% of music sales. So for several years, the digital sales increased each year and physical CD album sales continued to decline. iTunes and Amazon Music and others flourished. And unfortunately, it replaced the brick and mortar locations that many of us were used to in buying our.
Ray, you need to unmute because trying to let somebody in, I muted you.
I am back. So I'm talking about digital downloads and some of the benefits, including digital downloads are more economical because you pay only for the songs you wanted to download. I see what I'm doing. Typically, you can listen to a 30-second clip of a song before deciding if you want to make a purchase. And then new artists can showcase their work without the need for a full album. So we're going to talk now about music streaming services, which are the rage today. So right off the bat, I just want to mention what I think are some of the pros and cons of the music streaming services. Advantages: yes, you can listen to who else recorded a favorite song. Listen to other songs a favorite artist recorded. that maybe you hadn't heard before. Introduce new artists that otherwise you might never hear. Millions of songs. When I say millions, Amazon and Apple Music are happy to brag appropriately that they have access to over 100 million songs. Are there disadvantages? Well, always. Free services have limitations on the music you can hear. Typically, you need an internet connection. Now, some of the services now are allowing the download of playlists to the app for offline listening. Let's say you're going to be in an area, maybe you're going to be camping and you have no internet access. So these songs are downloaded for you to play offline, but you cannot copy them to your device. And then, of course, if you're not using Wi-Fi, then your monthly data allotment is being used. And most importantly, and I think the services do this on purpose, it is not easy to transfer your music playlist when switching services. So to stream or not to stream, that is the question. I think you should consider streaming if you don't have a large collection of music, but would still like to have access to favorite artists. You enjoy discovering new artists and their music. You're considering downsizing and no longer want to store and maintain a collection of vinyl or CDs. And you listen to music every day and want to have it readily available using today's technology. But you don't really need to stream if, let's say, you don't have an interest in today's new artists and or the various pop music offerings. Listening to music is not an important aspect of your daily life. And you've been collecting music for decades and already own all the music you ever want to hear. That being the case, we go back to what I said before, you should take the time to rip the music so then you can transfer it to your portable devices to play it pretty much anywhere. So I'm not going to go through all of this. I want to point out, though, CNET every year does a very good article on the best music streaming services of, and their latest one is obviously 2023. And they really give you an in-depth review of the variety of these music streaming services. So you'll see Spotify there. They're headquartered in Sweden and are the largest streaming service in the world. Apple Music, Amazon Prime. The Amazon Prime Music is best for if you're already a Prime member, because this is a benefit. But then they also offer what's called Amazon Music Unlimited. And that's the one that boasts the 100 million song catalog. YouTube Music has replaced the retired Google Play Music, and that's geared to those who enjoy actually watching music videos. There's Pandora and Tidal. So again, if you want to really get a much better in-depth review of these streaming services, that's the article to look for. Now, millennials love music streaming. These younger music lovers have moved away from purchasing and collecting music media, meaning CDs. They prefer renting their music from these online services, which provide a form of personalized internet radio. By creating their own playlists, they sort their music by genre, tempo, artist, have so much more available to listen to. And again, to me, a big major benefit of streaming your music is you no longer have to worry about storage issues, damaging a disc, theft, etc. Now here's something interesting. How do singers, composers, and others get paid from streaming? So the music streaming services, Spotify, Apple, Pandora, they receive income from two main sources. Either their free account, and that's where the advertisers pay the streaming service to interrupt the music you are listening to with ads. Or there's the subscription account. Users pay the streaming service a monthly fee, typically about $10 a month, so they can choose the music they want to hear without interruption. Now, what the music streaming service pays the artist and others entitled to royalties is complicated and based on a variety of factors. So these following comments were as of June 2022, and they relate to Spotify, but I'm guessing these are similar for the other streaming services. So subscription accounts represent 42% of users. So that means the other 58 are using the free account, but the 42% of that have subscribed to a service, that represents 90% of the total revenue.
Ray, you need to unmute again.
Okay, I'm seeing that. I got it. Thank you. So I'm going to start at the top here. I'm not sure how much I said before, but the following comments as of June 2022. This relates to Spotify, but I'm guessing this is true for the other streaming services. Subscription accounts represent 42% of users, but actually 90% of the total revenue. And of that total revenue, 65 to 70% is allocated to the artist, while the remainder is kept by the streaming platform to pay their own expenses. So the royalty portion for the artist is split between all tracks on the platform by their proportion to total streams. Now, band members, they're entitled to a split of the artist share based on whatever contract they have that's among the band members. Now, there's a current controversy going on. Should big name singers, as an example, Taylor Swift, should they get paid more per stream than an indie artist, maybe someone you never heard of? But right now, everyone gets the same proportion of the pot based on the number of streams of their music. Now, the next chart is a few years old, but provides what a singer can earn based on, and this is an approximate amount of what a streaming play receives, 0.0032. So basically 1/3 of a cent is paid for each time a song is streamed. So here we go. We can see that Justin Bieber tops the list. This is, again, is about 2 or 3 years old. 261 million plays. That earned him $835,000 just for that one song. He's on the list a little bit further, and then he goes down about halfway. So you can see by these amounts, so singers that are popular and are getting a lot of plays or a lot of streams, they can make a nice income. Now, who is the most popular streamed artist on Spotify for 3 years in a row as of 2022? So I want you to all be thinking about, who do you think is the most popular streamed artist? Are you guessing Adele or maybe Taylor Swift? How about the Canadian singers Drake or The Weeknd? Not them. Already, little drum roll. The answer is Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, whose real name is Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio. He was born in 1994 and is a Puerto Rican rap artist who is immensely popular in Mexico and many other Spanish language countries. He earned more than 18.5 billion, wait a minute, billion with a B, streams just in last year, 2022. So if I use the calculation of 1/3 of a cent per stream for his 18.5 billion streams, that gives him an income of over $59,200,000. My wife says, don't you wish you could rap? And actually this morning, before I move on, I read that in 2023, there have already been over 1 trillion streams. And that is the largest number of streams going. So this is an increasing way people are taking in their music. And another big foreign language is K-pop. And what is K-pop? Korean. So in South Korea, very, very popular Korean language, K-pop music. Going to be hearing that term as well in the future. Okay, so in the early days of rock and roll, national TV programs like American Bandstand and many of the weekly shows like Ed Sullivan, that's how we watched as viewers our favorite music icons. And then there were some theatrical movies made to showcase the rock and roll stars of the day, and various archives have saved these clips over the decades and uploaded them to YouTube. So while YouTube offers a subscription music app service, most watch the free music-related videos with ads. Current day concert footage you can see, sometimes it's from professionals and sometimes it's just an individual attendee with their smartphone who's taken the videos and uploaded this to the site. Now be careful, as the YouTube site can be habit forming. More than once I've told my wife, I'll be coming to bed in a little while, and the next thing I know, I see the sun rising. Now here's how I use music, a YouTube music playlist. I do have a YouTube Music Premium account, and that's my go-to streaming service. So I belong to a Romeo club. You might ask, what is Romeo? Romeo is retired old men eating out. And there's about a dozen of us that meet monthly for lunch in a private room at a restaurant in Phoenix. And I was given the task of playing specifically chosen songs in the background while we eat. So here's what takes place. Prior to our lunch, those attending will provide me with the names of 3 songs and corresponding artists from which I create a playlist on YouTube with a link to that song. At the lunch, I hand out a spreadsheet showing the names of the songs and the artists in the order they will be played, along with who requested them. And I set up 2 small Bluetooth speakers at each end of the large table we all sit at, and using just my smartphone, start the music, which plays automatically from song to song while we eat and talk. This compared with the old days when people we'd bring out speakers and turntables and amplifiers and CD players and have to set them up and then put them all away when we were done. Welcome to the 21st century. Now here's a couple of music apps to download to your smartphone that I think are worthwhile. Have you ever heard of a song playing, but you can't recall right off the top of your head the name or the artist? Well, if you have either SoundHound or Shazam, those are smartphone apps, and Shazam is now owned by Apple. These apps on your smartphone, once they hear the song playing, will tell you the title, the artist name. Often they'll provide lyrics. They'll give you a video if one is available, and they'll give you more information about top songs from this artist. Do you want a music player for your Android smartphone now that Google Play Music is retired? I use Music.ly. That's my music player of choice for the songs saved on my phone. All right, you can have your cake and eat it too. So today's modern phonographs connect to the standard RCA inputs, the red and white, without the need for the higher amplification phono connection that was used on older receivers. So you can add this to your setup pretty easily. And you can purchase a turntable, and I think probably most of them today come with a USB cable. And that allows you to connect it to your computer, and you can then record the songs in real time as MP3 files as the record is playing. And some of the new record albums contain a one-time use code that allows you to download all the songs on the album as MP3 files. So you don't only have to go through that process. So are LPs taking us back to the future? Well, according to Rolling Stone magazine, the sale of vinyl records in 2020 generated more annual income than compact discs for the first time since 1986. CD sales, as I mentioned before, have really been declining since 2003. And this really was helped along when the illegal online music downloading took place with Napster. Now in 2021, there was a slight, CD sales had a slight increase, only 1.1% from the prior year. And most experts attribute this to Adele's top-selling CD, Title 30, which many older Americans and music lovers wanted to buy without the need to do downloading. They still like the CD. But a reality check reminds us that streaming remains the most popular way to consume music, over 80% of the industry's revenues. Something old, but something new. You can see even the new LPs you purchase, they're not just plain black anymore. They're white. They come in a variety of colors, and still many people, and I'm going to mention this in a minute too, still like the idea of having an album. Now, in line with that, this is an amazing statistic that I only came across the other day. It was reported in 2022 that not everyone who purchases vinyl records owns a turntable. That amazed me. The report is from Luminite, and this is an entertainment industry data provider, so they are a well-known name in providing industry statistics. They state that on a percentage basis, the number of people who buy vinyl records and actually own a turntable, that number is 50%. Yes, half of the public buying vinyl records today do so for the keepsake aspect, to have a physical connection to the artist and music they are streaming, as well as another method further support them. So I often will say there's two kinds of people in the world today. There's music listeners and there's music collectors. And these are music listeners, but they also have that collector gene, and that's why they want to have something that they can hold in their hand. Hard to hold an MP3 song in your hand. And no doubt it's easier to ask Miss A to play a song when compared to the effort. I should have put effort in quotation marks. Effort involved in placing a record on a turntable and placing the stylus in the groove. So here's a question I'm asked with frequency. How much are my old records worth? So my answer is, I want you to go and check out Discogs.com. So the Discogs website launched in 2000, and it contains a database of audio recordings, even including 78 RPM discs, all kinds of vinyl discs, cassettes, CDs, and more. The Discogs database contains over 15 million songs released by over 8 million artists, and these numbers grow daily. So after you create a free account, you enter the information about the recording you have in mind, and Discogs will come back and provide statistics that tell you how many others have this recording that are Discogs, have a Discogs account, how many want it, and what it was last sold at, and gives you the low, medium, and high prices based on the quality. So even more than eBay, Discogs has become the main go-to website for those looking to buy and sell recorded music items. Discogs.com. What is high-res audio, and should you care? This is a trend you're going to see more and more. Already, streaming services like Tidal and more recently Amazon Music HD are touting their ability to stream music to smartphones and most digital hi-fi components as high-resolution audio. Simply put, high-res audio are music files that have a higher sampling frequency and or bit depth than a compact disc, and that's very high to begin with. So on the positive side, it's a higher quality sound reproduction. On the negative side, this is going to require high-end speakers to receive the full benefit of this very large file size. So the bottom line, what type of music do you listen to? Soft vocals, or is it more like classical or rock with lots of instrumentation? What kind of speakers do you listen with? Are they inexpensive earbuds, or do you have high quality headphones or speakers? So I tell people, take the music listening blindfold test, picking a favorite song and having a friend play it on the same equipment, alternately from the original CD and then from an MP3 computer file. If you could correctly tell the difference, high-res audio may be a worthwhile investment for you. But if you're like me and are unable to notice any stark difference, you've just saved a bunch of money. And again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are the different kind of file formats you will see when it comes to saving your music on your computer. You'll get high quality, and they call them lossless. And you'll see there's FLAC and WAVE would fit into that category. Large file sizes though, and then for average quality, they're much smaller in size, like an MP3 or what is also known as an AAC. But so that's where you have to decide. High quality, large file size, average quality, smaller file size. Now, I like to, as I've said before, I like the best of both worlds. So here in particular, on the left, is my television in the living room, and I use Plex, and I'm going to be doing a presentation on Plex in the future. But so I have all the songs from the Ed Sheeran's Shivers album on my Plex server, and I can play them in my living room just with a click of a few buttons on the remote. Or I also have the actual LP, the vinyl LP that was released on the Equal album. So I have the best of both worlds. How many of you fall into this category? Maybe in 1964 you purchased the brand new Beatles album, came out on 12-inch vinyl, and then you replaced that in 67 with an 8-track tape. In 72, you replaced that with a cassette tape, and then you bought a compact disc with a better sound quality, and then you made it an MP3 file. And here, 2018, you're buying a 12-inch vinyl LP again. What goes around comes around. All right, now part 2, listening to music in your car. How far we've come from the AM radio. Yes, music in the car has evolved. Early on, it was just an AM radio. And then remarkably, we had an AM radio that allowed you to put in maybe 5 or 6 station push buttons. I'm sorry, that was just the AM radio. Then they added the FM band. And then we had it with 8-track players, with cassette players, with a CD, and then multiple discs. Then all of a sudden, Sirius was on board with satellite reception, and you could connect your device through a wired connection in the car, flash drive connection. And more recently, we have what's called the Bluetooth connectivity. So today, the options to music in the car are numerous. And believe me, they can be confusing. So you have AM radio, and that's sometimes actually often as AM stereo. And there was a little bit of controversy recently. Some of the auto manufacturers wanted to eliminate, to save some money on cost, the AM band. And I think Congress has stepped in and at least temporarily stopped that from taking place. The FM radio, and that may include what's called HD FM, and that offers up to 3 additional channels on the same frequency. Sirius XM, CD, although as we're going to talk about, they're starting to disappear from new cars. And then you had USB connectivity, smartphone connections with Bluetooth. It's like deja vu all over again. Anyone there remember who said that? Of course, the above quote is from famed New York Yankee catcher Yogi Bear. So most of you can recall when the following disappeared from cars: the 8-track player, the cassette player. So now the CD player is disappearing, and I have a 2019 model vehicle, doesn't even have the simple audio cord input connection anymore. They're expecting everybody to do it wirelessly. And why don't new cars have CD players? Well, it's the time for new technology. CD players in the car have been around for more than 30 years. And it requires, as we all know, you have to have the physical presence of the media, the disc, and typically this jewel case as well. You don't need that with newer technology. And we talked about it a couple of times already. CD sales have been declining because the younger listeners, they want to opt for newer methods to hear their favorite artists and tunes. And so auto manufacturers, to meet that, are providing newer technology and eliminating the expense of a CD player. So you now have to decide how you want to proceed. You're going to have some options here. Option 1 is to convert or rip the songs from your existing compact disc collection to MP3 files saved on your computer, so you can then be copied to devices to play the songs you own in your car. It's time consuming for sure, but once you do that, there's no monthly subscription fee. And then option 2 is to choose a streaming service and play the music in your car from your smartphone via Bluetooth. There's going to cost you some money, the monthly subscription cost, but limited effort involved. And then there's option 3, you can be like me and use both. So you want to convert your CD music files to MP3s. Over the years, this is a process I would do as soon as I purchased a new CD for all the obvious backup benefits. Lots of CD ripping programs available. Despite its age, Windows Media Player, for its simplicity and ease of use, and it comes preloaded with Windows 10, is an acceptable choice. On the negative side, Windows Media Player has not been updated in years and has lost some of its functionality. Now, Windows 10 provided 2 music players. The long-running Windows Media Player, you could actually organize your music, and you could rip your music CDs. And then they also had the Groove Music Player that came up originally as a streaming service, but they discontinued that after about 2 years when it was not a success. And that was a more modern app for playing various music computer files, but did not have any support for compact discs or video files. Well, Windows 11 provides a new music player to replace both Windows Media Player and Groove, and it will play videos and audio files. And a recent update, it actually allows you to play and rip CDs. So I'm sure much research and discussion must have gone into deciding on a name for this wonderful new Windows 11 app. So drum roll, please. The name they came up with, it's called Media Player. I can't believe that's the name they came up with. So for those who can't give up Windows Media Player, the Windows 11 has that too, but now it's called by a new name, Windows Media Player Legacy. It's the same version 12 from about 10 years ago. Now there's other CD ripping choices. Apple fans, as well as Windows users, you can still download iTunes despite its official retirement. And if you want a non-Microsoft program for ripping, my recommendation is one called Music Bee, and it's at getmusicbee.com. And then another good choice, in particular for videos, is VLC. So type any of those names into a search box and they'll come up and give you the location where they can be downloaded. Again, we talked about ripping CDs to your computer, and anybody that has a newer laptop, obviously they no longer have optical drives, but you can purchase a portable one. They're readily available. They're not that expensive if you get the ones that are just for DVDs. But if it's going to be for, let's say, Blu-ray videos, those are more expensive. But they just plug into the USB port. Actually, the latest one I bought has two connections, one for the USB-A and another one, which makes it a little bit faster if your computer has a USB-C connectivity. All right, so there's many YouTube videos that provide visual instruction and narration to help you understand the process of ripping a music compact disc to your computer. Just type the words in the YouTube search box, rip CD to computer, and you're going to get dozens of ones to watch that'll tell you exactly how to do that. So I'm going to assume at this point that you know how to do that and that the songs from the CD have been ripped to your computer, and then you've copied them to a flash drive that you now want to play in your car that has a built-in USB connector. So I'm going to show you now how I do that in one of my cars.
Okay, we're back in the car, and now we're going to take the flash drive that I brought with me and put it into the USB connector slot. I have two in this car. Doesn't really matter which one I use. I put it in one of them, and then I close the console. Now my audio is off, so I'm going to turn my audio on. And I'm going to go to the home key and then audio. And it's already started playing. So I got the volume control here. Now it's not picked out the correct album art, which makes sense. And for some reason, John Carpino's name is coming out ARPIN. I don't know. That's not important now. The purpose is to show you how this works. So as I said, I can use the controls here on the screen to either advance to the next song or go backwards. Now it's showing a total of 37 songs because I've actually downloaded on this flash drive the 3 CDs that I own. I'm going to now also show you how we can make these changes on the steering wheel. Here is, I can go to the next track just by using the controls on the steering wheel. I'll go back, and the same thing works for volume. And one of the nicest features is when you can actually choose a song based on the verbally asking for it. Play track, I Can't Get Arrested in This Town. And all by itself, just like that, up comes that song and starts to play. So think about as you're driving and you don't want to have to be touching the screen or anything, you can just speak what you want and the system will respond. And then if you're driving with a passenger who wants to see what other songs might be available, the passenger can tap the browse button, and then here list all the songs we have in alphabetical order. And so when you get to one you like, the passenger can do, okay, let me hear this song. So lots of nice features by using a flash drive in the car.
Okay, we now know how to use a flash drive for those cars equipped with a USB connector. Not something new. This feature was available on a 2008 vehicle that I traded in a few years ago. But to me, the ability to verbally request songs and or artists is the best feature, as this allows hands-free usage, thus improving safe driving. And let's face it, it's easier to carry one flash drive than several CD discs and jewel cases. Now, smartphones with songs saved on additional storage options. Many Android smartphones allow for micro SD cards to be added that can hold music files. So let's assume your phone can accommodate a 1 terabyte micro SD card. So if an average song is 5 megabytes in size, a 1 terabyte micro SD card could fit approximately 200,000 of your very favorite songs, or over 17,000 hours of music. In other words, just under 2 years of continuous playing time. So it's best to copy songs to the micro SD card while it is directly connected to a computer via an adapter, since using a cable with a smartphone is a much slower process. Now, iPhones do not allow the use of micro SD cards for additional storage, so music would have to be saved on internal storage, and that might take up some valuable space that you might need for other apps and system programs. So in this situation, if you're committed to the Apple ecosystem, the recently discontinued iPod Touch may still be available to purchase, and that is an excellent choice to use as a music playing device. And of course, just a plain old MP3 player. Very popular before this feature became available in smartphones, but these units are still available to purchase. Now we have to get the sound to the car's speakers. So Bluetooth systems allow you to pair your smartphone with the car stereo head unit to play the music wirelessly. Now, while it's a simple process, it's best to check YouTube videos for the tutorials, as the pairing procedure differs among car manufacturers. And your car dealer is another option that can help in this regard. And the audio jack cable, many devices have an audio jack that is typically used with wired headphones, but can also be used with cars that have this type of connection. And then there's what's called an FM transmitter. This is, you plug this into a DC power slot, and that allows the music from the device to be played on an unused FM station. So these are all depending how old the vehicle you're driving is. And I'm going to show you some videos now that give you some practical viewpoints as to how this is done.
Okay, we're back in the car, and this time it's going to be a demonstration of how the Bluetooth works when your phone is paired with the head unit in the car. And I've already done that with this phone. And this particular system is called Sync 3, actually allows for the pairing of several phones. So you could have your spouse's phone, you could have your kid's phone, and depending who wants to play the music on a particular drive, we can easily change to whose phone is going to be paired. So now in this case, I have brought up on my Musical.ly app the song by John Carpino called Get This Thing Right, and it's from the Evolution LP, and I'm going to use the button on the screen here to play it. Let me turn up the volume a little bit. So it's coming out, and that's nice, sounding good. But now, imagine I'm driving. I don't want to actually take my hands off the steering wheel. So I can just go to the controls on the steering wheel, and I can change the volume this way, either up or down. And likewise, if I want to go to the next track, it's just click on the seek button, And there's the next track. So again, safe driving. My hands really aren't coming off the steering wheel, and yet I'm controlling what I want to hear out of the car's speakers from via Bluetooth from my phone.
All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about option 2. And instead of playing your own music that you've purchased, you're going to go with a streaming service. And the streaming services, as I said, you have 2 choices: either the free service, where you're going to hear music with ads, and really the service decides what songs they're going to play in the genre you prefer. And then choice 2, you pay about $10 a month, and you can choose the song and the artist. Now, and again, I may have mentioned this before, for those already paying for Amazon Prime, it's worth just experimenting with Amazon Prime Music, because that's free and it's part of the service, and it's going to be no extra cost to you.
All right, we're going to now use a streaming service. So I have Amazon Prime on my phone. Amazon Prime is free. Temporarily, I've also started a trial version of Amazon Music Unlimited, and that gives you many, many more song choices. So I'm going to tap on my Amazon Music on the phone. Comes up and it looks for the search history. I have John Carpino's name in already, so I'm going to keep it there and tap on that. And on the phone now, it's coming up with several results, and it has John Carpino as the artist. So I'll tap him, his name, and then it's showing the different albums that he has. Some of these I own, but some of them I don't. So if I go to this one here as an example and tap on it, it's going to show me all the different songs he's done. And I'm going to play the first one. I just tap on it. And now, even though it's playing on my phone through Bluetooth, it's coming out through the car speakers. And just like we did before, I can control the volume on the steering wheel. And I can also go to the next track on the phone, the next track on the phone, or come back. So again, all the things that you'd like to do and hear the music from your phone when it's connected via Bluetooth and you have a streaming service, you can hear all the different songs coming out of the head unit in your car. Okay, now we're in a car that does not have Bluetooth, but we still want to be able to utilize our cell phone as an example with the music we have on it to play in the car. So in this case, I use a wired connection. So normally most phones have a speaker jack. Instead of using the plug for headphones, I'm using it to connect it to the auxiliary input jack in this particular car. And I have a little holder here, and I'll talk about that in a second, that puts the phone right within easy reach of my hand as I'm driving. So I have it all connected, and I have my music Olay system set up. I want to hear a particular song, Hey Memphis by John Carpino. I just press the play button. And now again, it's coming out of the car speakers. Control it with the volume control here like I normally would. But I have all my music with me on my phone connected to the car, even without Bluetooth. Now what I've done is also I use this little bit of a holder here, and I'll just take this off for a second. This just clips right into, just hangs right on the CD insert spot. So that way, but it won't move, and I like it because it's within easy reach. Some cars have more vents, and you can use clips like that too, but for this particular vehicle, I think this worked out the best. Put this back, lock it in a little bit.
All right, now, how about you have even an older car that does not have any of what we call our modern audio features? Well, this is where a cassette adapter comes in, and also the opportunity to use what's known as a Bluetooth FM transmitter. And or again, we just described using and attaching audio cables between the speaker jack of the FM transmitter and the device that will be playing your music, the cell phone. So FM transmitters often accept USB and SD cards with stored music, so you can even have more storage. And what is an FM transmitter? Well, you configure it so it will send the audio sound to a not in use FM radio station. And then you can listen to your music on that station on your car FM radio. So as they say, a picture or a video is worth 1,000 words. Let me show you what I'm trying to explain here.
Okay, folks, now we're going to move on to a vehicle that is so old. This is my 20-year-old motorhome, that the fancy entertainment system consists of an AM/FM radio and a cassette player. Then what do? Well, you can get what's called a cassette adapter. Now, the cassette adapter costs under $10 at Walmart, and this one is a wired cassette adapter. And I just recently learned that on Amazon you can buy a Bluetooth cassette adapter that will come without the wire, and it'll connect via Bluetooth your phone and the cassette, so whenever you're playing it, and I'm going to give you an example of how that works now. So I'm going to take the cassette adapter and put it into the, just like I normally would. Yeah, the wire is sticking out, but that's no big deal. And the other end of the wire is connected to the speaker jack on my smartphone, where I have the song ready to play. And I'm going to press the play button, turn up the volume a little bit. And this is my friend John Carpino, who's given me permission to play all of his music for these instructional videos. And it's close enough to me while I'm driving. If I want to hear to the next song, I can just tap on the button that goes forward to the next selection, and there it is. So, and again, but the volume is all controlled on what I normally would if I was playing a tape. So that's one way of dealing with an older vehicle if it has a cassette player, and all your music though is stored on some kind of device like a smartphone. All right, the next item and type of device I'm going to talk about is called an FM transmitter. Now, these have been around for a long time. I had one probably close to 30 years ago. They were analog in those days, and they really didn't hold the station very good. What does an FM transmitter do? It takes the signal that you're sending to it to an unused FM radio station. So we know on the FM dial, there's lots of stations that are not broadcast on, depending where you are. You can then direct the signal to go to that station and hear it through your FM radio. So this particular device I liked. It has the ability for me to play a flash drive with music on it. So all I have to do is plug it in, and when it's connected to the DC power, it'll play. And it also, this is a neat one because it has a SD card. So I can actually put all of my music on a SD card like this and have it plugged in, and it'll play. The problem with this one is when I have it plugged in over here, it's in my gear shifter is in the way. So for this particular vehicle, this isn't working that well. All right, so what did I do? I went out and I got a second FM transmitter, one a little bit more flat that fits in nicely to the DC power slot on the dash here. You can see I already have it tuned to 93.1. That's the FM station, and on my radio here, I also have it at 93.1. So now when I play a song on my phone that's connected via Bluetooth, it'll come out through the speakers in the vehicle. So let's see if that works.
I've been watching out my window. Everybody looks confused.
John sounding very good. So this now is really close to me as I'm driving. If I want to go to the next song, just a matter of tapping the forward button like that, and it brings up the next song. And I can see on the phone, it's called It's About a Love. And this particular app I'm using actually gives me the lyrics. So, but I should be watching the road, not the lyrics as I'm driving. So that's how an FM transmitter works. You pair your phone with the transmitter, and whatever unused station in your area is not being used for a regular FM signal, you're able to play your device through that. All right, here we go with the final aspect. I've taken my FM transmitter, and this time I've saved all of the songs I have by John Carpino on a flash drive. And I've plugged the flash drive into the center button here. The other two actually are for if you want to charge something. Let's say you want to charge your phones or something else, you can plug in here. But the middle one will now actually read the information that's on that flash drive. And what's on that flash drive is the MP3 files of John Carpino's songs. So I have it set up again. I just have to press the play button here. And it's now, you can see there's no phone here. It's now playing the songs that are on this flash drive through the FM radio on the 93.1 station.
Well, maybe I expect more from my brothers and sisters. Take a look around you, man. Take a look around you, mister. 2 minutes walking around with a hole in their heart.
So even with an old vehicle, a 20-year-old vehicle that only has a cassette player, you can see there's several ways that you can take today's technology, as long as you have your music saved as MP3 files on some kind of device, and play them in your car effortlessly as you're driving along, and you can be on the road again. Thank you very much.
All right. Other options to connect your smartphone to your auto include, and these are going to be hearing more and more as time goes on, Android Auto. That's a mobile app, and it allows the features from an Android phone to appear on the car's compatible entertainment head unit and be voice operated. This is primarily on car models from about 2017 and later. Apple has a similar functionality known as CarPlay, and that's software that runs from a connected iPhone. Again, provides a variety of audio features like Android Auto, and this is on car models from about 2016 and later. Amazon Echo Auto, that adds the Alexa app on your phone to your car via Bluetooth or a wired connection. So in addition to playing music, you can have the other benefits the Echo devices offer. Now remember, when connected on the road, you're using your cell phone carrier data plan. So to utilize the benefits of Android Auto requires having your Android phone physically plugged in to the car's USB connector. That means the cable is noticeable. Now, several wireless adapters are now available, but I think they're considerably expensive for basically just hiding the cable. So if your vehicle does not have a factory installed navigation app, Android Auto is a smart way to have your route appear on the larger infotainment screen and not just the small cell phone screen. And then on the Apple CarPlay side, similar in function to Android Auto, except that it's made to work with iPhones and all the Apple apps, including maps, music, text, messages, and talking on the phone without holding the device. Apple continues to add more benefits to CarPlay. Now here's a neat feature, recent feature on select car models. It's called Car Keys, and allows you to leave your key fob at home, since you'll be able to unlock and start your car with your iPhone using NFC near field communications tap technology. Car Keys also allows you to digitally share, but not physically, your keys with another Apple phone user. Now, what's happening is, and this is relatively new, and in contrast to Android Auto, it's called Android Automotive. And that's the full operating system installed at the factory that running the vehicle's infotainment system, and it does not rely on a smartphone for its operation. So messaging, phone, navigation, music playback, some vehicle-specific functions like air conditioning are all part of the operating system. And then a similar situation with Apple CarPlay, where the operating system can be ordered as a new car operation option. So when you're ready to buy a new car, be sure to see if the model you are interested in has such availability. Music formats will continue to change. One certainty with technology, it's always evolving. Either you evolve with it or get left behind. Now, one last final comment here. YouTube has a very strict policy regarding songs played in videos on their website, where you must have permission to do so. If you violate this, you get a strike, and 3 strikes, you're out, meaning they shut down your YouTube channel. Now, I know some of the user groups I make presentations for like to upload the presentations to their club's YouTube channel. So I wanted to make sure this could be accomplished without a copyright strike or a copyright issue. So my playing John Carpino songs, I have his permission, and therefore it allows this tutorial to be uploaded without a copyright strike. So you would be doing me a personal favor just to go to his website, johncarpino.com, scroll to the bottom of the page and click on send message to tell him you saw my presentation and appreciate that he has allowed his music to be used.
Liked what you heard? Then support this marvelous singer-songwriter by bringing home his music. Available on his website, johncarpino.com.
All right, I am done, and I'm going to stop sharing.
That was an absolutely fantastic presentation. And do you know how many laughs there are in your presentation? I'm just sitting here making sure I was still muted.
Yeah, I try to get a little entertainment in there as well.
You know, because we've lived it. And it just, you know, brings you back into the old days, so to speak. And I too had and I'm thinking your motorhome is the stick shift, right?
No, actually, fortunately, it is automatic drive.
Oh, yeah, I had a stick shift one.
Wow.
I love sticks. You can't have hot rodded in it, but it was great.
Well, you know what's, Judy, great about stick shifts today? You can leave your car unlocked because most younger people would not know how to drive it away.
Yeah.
My son's stick saw the 2 grandsons to high school. Third one said, not learning how to drive a stick, period. I thought, boy, you don't know what you're missing. I have 2 questions for you, and we'll catch the others at the end when we do open Q&A.
Okay.
Is it possible now to use both a computer's internal speakers and add external speakers, either wired or using Bluetooth?
Is the question meaning simultaneously? I don't believe you can do it simultaneously. Certainly you could have them as choices, and then your settings under the audio, you can choose which one you want to use. But I don't believe there's an ability to play them both simultaneously.
Thank you. How does one clean a vinyl record, which while playing has pops and, oh, remember pops and snaps?
Pops and crackles, yes. There are still available probably on Amazon. I haven't bought them in a while, but there's solutions, and it's a solution, and it comes with a small brush, and you put a few drops of the solution on the brush, and then you can either hold the LP in your hand and just go in a circular motion, or some people actually just let it rotate on the turntable and then gently put the brush on it. Now that will pick up the dust and maybe any other material that's on it. Will it eliminate the cracks and pops and crackle and noise? Not really. Those are now embedded, but I kind of like them. So, and that's all right. That's part of nostalgia.
Yes, and as an FYI, my oldest brother at one time had a record store filled with, you know what, tables and bins and all this good stuff. It was over by LAX. Anyway,
they've come back. There actually is one, sometimes twice a year. It's called Record Store Day, And for all the independent record stores that are now doing a thriving business for the most part, they will offer all kinds of discounts. So I have one turntable downstairs, one turntable upstairs, and one that I'm not using in the garage. So I'm ready for the long haul.
Okay, I have one comment. Ripping extracts a WAV file. Encoding to MP3 or other format is a separate process. Some programs combine ripping and encoding into what looks like a single operation.
Of all the basic programs I'm used to, Windows Media Player and some of the other, it's all one process. Now in the settings, when you're ripping, you have choice of how you want to do it. And one of the choices can be, I want to rip this as an MP3 file, but you could say, I want to rip this as an example, FLAC, which is what they call lossless. So you have the choice in your settings as to what the final output will be, but it is all one process.
Outstanding. Again, thank you so much. That was absolutely terrific.
Glad to